Alright, gonna be looking at some Devil Jin.
Fight.
Okay, so when you're fighting Jin, nothing bad about getting clipped by this electric, but just as a just as a tip, when you're fighting Jin, use sidestep right when you're under threat of electric. Uh, the electric has good tracking to your sidestep left, so just as a habit when you're fighting Jin, try to step right when you're at this kind of distance. You'll make the electric, the 442, the 44. Those will whiff on your sidestep right. So okay, so the first thing you figure out, jab the hell sweep. He jabbed out of the hell sweep. So things to note about your opponent while you're fighting is like how they react to your pressure. And here he jabbed. So this is good. I like to see this kind of adaptation. Jab right after your jab instead of going for another hell sweep or 50-50, down 4-2 to catch him mashing again. And here he's layering on the Jin. They love the 2-1, 2-1, the 2-1, 2-1, 4. Still with Jin, it can be quite hard to deal with jab pressure in general. You don't really have a really strong attack that you can use to beat jabs. A lot of times you gotta rely on movement and quick flash ducks. But if you're not totally comfortable sidestepping, ducking, and dealing with jabs that way, don't feel bad about throwing out generic lows, down 4, or even crouch jabs here and there, just to keep your opponent from controlling you with jabs. Because as Devil Jin, if they're jabbing anytime they want to, you're gonna have a really hard time applying any kind of offensive pressure. And as a defensive character, Devil Jin is not that strong. You really want to play more for your offense. Okay, so him ducking the electric here, that is not something that you should be like. That's not a mistake from you, right? He made a really good read. That's just something that is good to get out of the way early in rounds, or in a set even. Figuring your opponent's defensive habits. You created this space with the 4-4-2, and he anticipated the electric because, generally from this kind of spacing, what are you scared of? Electric and hell sweep. And he just blocked the 4-4-2, so he made a read, and that's just something you keep in your head. Okay, my opponent, if I get into this kind of spacing again, if he's ducking and trying to read your electric, that gives you time to get in his space while he's still thinking about the electric. Oh, I'm going to duck the electric. We're at this spacing. He's going to want electric. That if you know that your opponent wants to play that way, you can just approach him and get in his face. Where, well, now he can't just read the electric because he doesn't know when you're going to throw it out again. You've reset the spacing and the timing and everything. So that's how you can take something from a situation like this, getting launched for electric. You can take something out of it. It looks like you almost got the duck. Just go back here. You play it pretty patiently, which is it's good to have patience as a Devil Jin player because you don't really have a lot of ways to just muscle your way out of pressure. So the fact that you're playing patiently is it's a good habit. Yeah, just taking the jabs when you can is good, and the electric maybe hopefully bites, but then holding back. Yep, and eventually you find the counter. That was really good, dealing with the being patient with the wall pressure and not falling for it. Okay, so here, if it's an awkward, you've got an awkward wall spacing here, and if you know that your opponent, you see how he's hitting the wall with his side. If you can recognize that you're going, because it's really hard to continue the combo from here. A lot of things is not going to pick up very easily. So as Devil Jin, a simple answer is get them to hit the wall like this and just throw out back four. If it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, you're not at a big disadvantage here. But you're trying to continue with the back to three, and it gets blocked. You just around for it. It can be really hard to deal with these kind of diagonal wall stages, but if you can notice that they're going to hit the wall on their side, it's basically you basically just end the combo early and try and hit them one more time. That's like a simple way to deal with that situation. Okay, so here, just want to point out again, you might not have noticed while you're playing, this little duck here, right here. Right here. You see Jin ducks right here. He's more than likely thinking about your electric, which you didn't throw out. But this just goes to show, if you've got your opponent ducking for electric, you don't need to use the electric, right? If they're ducking for the electric, they're playing defense. That's when you come in and pressure. So if you notice your opponent doing things like this, it's a good sign that you can. It's basically a signal to you that, okay, he's thinking about something. Show him something else, right? Okay, so you're mostly playing just your offense very simple with frame, jab, jab, jab down for one, jab electric. Just trying to catch them, basically mashing, and he's been mashing jabs quite often, so nice. The back 2-1 ender, although it doesn't give you a great damage, the Oki is still really nice, so I don't mind going for the. Okay, if you block the cans, you can throw your own as a punish. Looks like you tried the up 4-3. I guess might have been a misinput, but okay, this is something you might be able to. This is just something to keep in mind as you're playing. So I mentioned earlier using the down 4 as a way to stop your opponent from mashing jabs on you as Devil Jin. The difference here is it's really all about the HP difference here. So your opponent, if he's stressed out by this life deficit that he's got to make out, he might not be content with just throwing out a jab here. If like I say, if he's scared and about making this comeback or anxious, that's when you can look out for big reads like this, the hop kick. Because the jab is not going to win him the round, but the hop kick will. So being able to look at the life totals, and because obviously this isn't like a situation you've been in before with this player, but at the same time, it's not something that is impossible to anticipate. You just got to look at, you got to call it from the, the HP here. Okay, I'm putting pressure, I'm jabbing. He's going to crack at some point. And so the down 4 here becomes even riskier just due to the nature of the life totals on the screen. Not because the down 4 in particular is a risky low to throw out. In fact, it's very safe to throw out, but looking at the life difference, it makes it a much riskier proposition because he's going to get the hop kick read is going to give him. It's basically going to make up all the difference in this HP here. And you hitting the down 4 would have not even gotten you halfway towards closing the round. Okay, so I don't really mind. I mean, this is fine. You're playing passive. The jabs get punished. You were worried about him running in. It happens. Whiffing at the end of the round can be scary, but sometimes you just gotta throw some jabs out. Make sure that your opponent isn't just running it for free. And a beautiful block.
Round 3. Fight.
Alright, this is something that I really like.
Fight.
A lot of players, especially Mishima players, when they see whiffs like this, they might get really anxious and try and punish, try and get the electric whip punish. But I actually appreciate the patience here to see the whiffs and not try and punish. Especially when you see them whiffing things like jabs. Because a lot of people have eaten. This guy's done this to a lot of people, and they've all eaten this Magic 4 after the whiff 2-1. So the patience is good here. When you're looking for whiffs, you want to be really concrete with them. Right? You don't want to just try to whiff punish just because you saw something whiff and then eat a counter hit. You want to be really solid about understanding what it is that your opponent is whiffing and how risky your punish is too. Yeah, especially at round start, you don't want to eat this Magic 4 just for trying to whiff punish a jab. Yeah, so here he threw another jab interrupt. So here's the next thing right here is what I. So you wake up. Playing passively here is a good bet, but the one thing I wanted to bring up is the spacing here, right? So when you wake up here, you're basically in no danger right now at all. Right? There's no attack that Jin has that's gonna reach you here. But you continue to back up, and this is just like a habit that you might need to break out of. It's a situation you just woke up on Oki, right? So you might assume, I mean, a lot of times it's safe to assume that your opponent is going to try and attack after their knockdown. But here the spacing doesn't really give him any advantage in attacking here. So backing up is not really useful at this point when you've already got the space you've made, because the next thing that happens is he whiffs. But you're nowhere near in a range where, like this range where he whiffs. So you're backing up, he whiffs, and you're trying to punish with the electric, but since you're so far out, the electric takes forever to get there, and he's blocking it easily. Like, he's got frames to spare on that one. So the one thing I would recommend for you is to, when you're in your matches, is just to just take some focus and think about your spacing, because as Deviljin, whiff punishing is basically one of your keys to victory. That and your offensive pressure, which is to create whiff punishes, right? Your offensive pressure should be helping you create these whiff punishes. Here you get given one for free, but since you are just backing up on a probably on a safe autopilot, you're just backing up because you got knocked down and this was what you assumed would be your opponent's Oki. You missed out on this great whiff punish opportunity. So just pay attention to your spacing. You know, when you wake up here, you know, you're backdashing in a situation where you're already out of range of every attack that he could throw out. So you gotta thread the good gotta thread the needle. They gotta whiff, but you still gotta be in range to punish after the whiff. Okay, so I see you throwing out the high crushes, trying to read electric. You just reacted a little bit slow to the spring kick there. Yeah, and here again. Although your spacing wasn't... You weren't totally out of range to get this whiff punish like the earlier one, but... yeah, you're backing up here. There's a certain point here where you're already... Yeah, you're already out of range of everything. Yeah. Yeah, you really should be throwing your opponents a lot, especially with Deviljin. You've got access to 1, 2, and 1+2 breaks, so it's good to keep testing your opponent's throw breaks.
KO. Round 4. Fight.
Alright, another thing with Deviljin is you really got to work on your back 1-2 punishes. It's one of the... That back 1-2 knockdown is really crucial. It will get you a lot of rounds if you can just punish with back 1-2. Especially you, since you've got the cancel on it, you can always back out of a bad punish or a punish mistake. Yeah, so here's another good thing. The 4-4-2 situation is really important for Deviljin. This is the kind of range that's really juicy for your whiff punish game. And you did this, you did exactly what you need to do here, right? The 4-4-2 block situation, you're ready for the jab to whiff. If you can apply that kind of play to your neutral, right? So just when you're like spacing out a neutral, because look at this here, this range. This is the range where you should. This is the range that is scary for someone fighting against Deviljin, because they can't hit you with jabs and quick moves to stop you from dashing in their face and hell sweeping, or you know, 50-50s. They can't stop you with their quick moves because they're gonna whiff and need an electric like this. So this is an example of how you should be formulating spacing with Deviljin. Be out of range of their quick pokes, threaten them with the whiff punish electric, and when they're scared to whiff, that's when you can dash in and apply 50-50s. Okay, so here is something So your offense has been pretty focused on kind of like jab down 4-1 and basically trying to play like a frame tight kind of style, which is not bad, especially since you already observed your opponent trying to jab you out of your pressure a lot. But in this situation where you've got a lot of HP, like before I talked about when your opponent was at low HP and they had to make the comeback. Now it's the opposite. Now you got low HP and you've got to make the comeback. So you get the frames from the 1-2-2 punish, and immediately you're already worried that your opponent is going to try and interrupt, which they might. But at this point, you've got to take a risk on something because you at this point you have not put any real pressure on your opponent to defend, right? He's just been happy to jab whenever he wants, hold back. You haven't tested his low blocks. Did a little bit with throws, but not much. Yeah, so at this point, it's time to take a risk and get in his face and see what kind of pressure you can put because your opponent, there's no incentive for him to mash here. He's minus, he's got the health lead. You've got a lot to make up. Him mashing here, although it might happen, opponents do make big mistakes like this, but generally you want to play if generally in general play. At this point, you've got to make a comeback, so you've got to take a risk on your own offense. Yeah, and here again is the like we talk about the spacing. So you've created space with the electric, but it might just be an autopilot thing for you, or you're just used to people retaliating. Either way, you should really take some time to focus on during the matches, right? Just take some brain power, focus on how far am I away. Am I in range of their attacks? Is he in range of my attacks, etc.? Because here you get another nice whiff, and you're nowhere near to punish it. So, especially like I said with Devil Jin, where you really have to win games off of your whiff punishes. You're gonna want to pay attention to your spacing. Yep. Nice, caught him with the 1-2.
Final round. Fight.
Yeah, so here, something I feel like you should be taking advantage of more throughout the first round is just doing lows, Deljin's got great lows, and you haven't really tested him. You've been really hyper focused on dealing with the jabs. Him breaking out your pressure with jabs, but it's a lot better for you if you manage to put out pressure with your own offense. I assume that was a misinput for a down 4-1. It happens. Yeah, so I know I've said it many times, but you're playing a lot with the jabs, which is not bad, but it's not going to net you the kind of damage or control as Devil Jin, right? As Devil Jin, you're not going to get a lot of control or damage off of your jab and down 4-1 pressure. So you really got to open things up with your offense and think of creative ways. Another way to deal with opponents who like to retaliate with attacks, jabs, etc. is just to throw out laser scrapers, down 4, and then mix in down 4-1-2, right? So you throw out, because what you want to do is you don't need to counter hit him out of the jab every time, because what you can do is create a lot of hesitation for him to even want to jab by, you know, laser scraper one hit, laser scraper two hit, laser scraper all three hits, you know, play around with that. That way they see one hit, maybe they jab one time, they get counter hit. You know, maybe next time you go to just one hit and they hold back. You know, same thing with down 4-1-2. You throw it down 4-1, you see that they like to interrupt, throw out both hits next time. Then maybe they're not so keen on interrupting, and you can just get a little bit more control off the pokes that way. Because if you're just focused on setting up your pressure with jab, right? Jab into down 4-1, jab into hell sweep, jab into down 4-2, jab into jab. The times where he's going to interrupt, it's way less ambiguous for him. He sees the jab, he says, okay, maybe it's one or two jabs, I'm just going to throw out an interrupt. Yeah, so here, like, exactly, like, he just sees one jab, he says maybe he's going to take his turn after that jab, and let me jab, you know, and you've lost control. So, yeah, that's the benefit of even like the jab strings, like 1 into 1-2, you know, 1-2-3. Yeah, see, after the 1-2, well, he played it off whip, but still illustrates the point of mixing up your poke options in order to open up your offense better. That's unfortunate. Yeah, so it just seems you're hyper focused on preventing your opponent from mashing after your jabs. Your opponent is likely to. He's shown that he's gonna mash after your jabs. But at a certain point, you need to give him another reason to. If he feels safe that you're not throwing out hell sweeps and big lows and big mids and stuff like that. If he feels safe that all you're doing is jab, 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 down for one, jab, down for one. He's just not worried about anything, is basically what I'm getting at. So you're hyper focused on preventing him from mashing, but his mashing has done the job. He's gotten you to stop doing Devil Jin pressure, basically. That was probably just an unfortunate down back. Yeah, so I'd recommend focusing on your spacing. Focus on getting a little bit riskier with your offensive pressure besides just poking. Look for and when you are poking, look to vary your pokes, not with just jab into something or jab into jab. You know, look for down 4-1-2, back 4-2. You know, laser scraper mix ups. Use lows and throws especially, because as Devil Jin, you don't get a lot of control off of your pokes. Well, you can get control off of your pokes, sorry, but you don't get a lot of damage and reward in that sense from your pokes and your poke game. You really need to be putting pressure on your opponent in order to get whiffs, get them to whiff because they're scared that you're going to hell sweep them or something, or get them to press into a counter hit, you know, a down 4-2 or a back 4. Because, like I said, they got to be scared of something, and as Devil Jin, you can't. It's hard to scare them with just your jabs and your down 4-1s and such. So work on spacing with a focus of with punishing rather than just creating space because you don't want to be mixed up. And poking with more varied pressure, and then taking a risk on offense and use more lows and throws.